saw that the earlier dropdowns that we built using data validation were static dropdowns. In this demo, we'll see how we can build a dynamic dropdown. Let me show you what we are about to build first. This is the end result, and we'll build it up step by step. You can see I have 3 columns here: fruits, vegetables, and meats, and each of them have a menu of items. Now observe that I have a drop-down called category choice that allows me to pick between categories. These 3 categories correspond to the 3 items on row 1. Now, once I select a category, observe that the choice drop-down is populated with all of the items in the vegetables category. Now, let's say I switch to another category. Let's say I pick meats. You'll find that the drop-down is populated with all of the items in column C present in the meats category. Let's go back to fruits, and this drop-down will be populated with all of the items in column A. These are dynamic drop-downs. Let's say I add another item under the fruits category. I've added in oranges. If you go back to the choice drop-down list, observe that oranges is now an item in the list. I'll head back to sheet 1 of this workbook, where I have a simple example explaining how the offset and match functions work. We'll need to understand those before we can set up these dynamic dropdowns. In the first 2 columns, I have the month of the year and the corresponding value of sales in each month. In column F1, I'd like to specify the month of the year and then write a formula that will look up the value of sales for that particular month. We'll use the offset function for this. The offset returns a reference to a range, that is a specified number of rows and columns away from a starting cell or range. This allows you to start at a particular position and move a certain number of columns and rows away from that position. Now let's specify our starting cell. That's the first input to offset, and I'm going to specify this as cell A1. That's where my month and sales data start. I'll use the F4 key and lock this cell. Now that we have the starting point of the reference range, the next thing is to specify how many rows away from the starting cell the data that we want to view is present. Now we want to go as many rows down as the number of months that we have specified in the F1 cell. If the month is 1, we go 1 row down. If it's 2, we go 2 rows down, and so on. So the number of rows comes from cell F1, which I've locked. The number of columns, well, that's always 1. That's because if you look at the sales number, it's in column B, 1 column away from our reference cell A1. There are other optional parameters here, height and width. We don't need to specify those. Let's go ahead and close the parenthesis and hit enter. Observe we have the sales number for month 1, that is January, that's $1,000. Let's change the month to 2, we get the sales number for February. And if you change the month to say 5, you should get the sales number for May, 1400. Seems like our offset function is working just fine. Instead of specifying the number of the month for which we want the sales number, I'd like to specify the month name. Now we need a way to go from the name of the month to the relative position of the month, and we'll do that using the match function. The match function searches for a specified value within a range and returns the relative position of that value in the range. First, we need to specify what we are looking for, the month specified in the I1 cell. Let's lock this. Next, we have to specify the range of cells where we want to look up this particular month. That is the range from A2 to A13. I'm going to hit F4 3 times so that I lock the column. And the third option we pass into match is the match type. We want an exact match, so specify the value 0. This should give us the relative position of the month within the range specified. The relative position of February is 2. We can now combine the offset and match functions to get the sales value for a particular month. Let's use offset once again. The starting range is cell A1. In order to figure out how many rows we need to move down from the reference cell, let's use the match function to look up the month that we're interested in. So we look up the month in I1 in the range A2 to A13. This is the same match function that we've seen earlier, and we want an exact match. So the number of rows in offset is specified by the value returned by this match. The number of columns is the same as before, 1. So we move 1 column to the right, that is to column B, in order to get the sales number. Let's say you were to now change the month from February to July, you'll get the updated sales number for July, which happens to be $2,000.